All right, today we're going to finish rate of change. Yesterday we talked about how to find rate of change looking at a table of values, right, or a graph. So when we had a table of values, remember we found the change in y over what?
Change in x.
Change in x. How did we find rate of change for a graph?
Rise over run.
Rise over run, okay? There's one other way that we didn't talk about yesterday, and that's when we have two ordered pairs. Does anyone remember how we find rate of change or slope if you're given two ordered pairs? Y2 minus, anybody remember? Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. So that's on the board. You can write that down now. Why did I put M equals Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1? What does M represent? Slope. M is always the variable that we use for slope. Now, we're kind of getting an introduction to that. When we come back from fall break, we'll move on and talk about how to write equations in slope-intercept form, so on and so forth. But today, we're just talking about specifically how to solve when we have two ordered pairs. Now, y2, I always take the second y value as my y2. So I plug that number in first, and I subtract whatever the first y value is from that. Then you just do the same thing with x. Whatever my x2 is, I plug that in first, and I subtract the x1. Remember, those are just ordered pairs. So the second y value minus the first, second x value minus the first. Okay? Yes? Anybody still writing this down? Just a couple pencils still moving a little bit. Okay. Des, you good? Okay. All right. Number one, we're going to look at two ordered pairs, -4, -6, and then 4, -2. Does anyone want to try the first one? Huh? Kaylin, did you say yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. What's the second y value?
Second y.
Yep, the y value from the second ordered pair.
It's -2.
Okay, so I start with -2, and then I subtract the first y value. What's the y value from the first ordered pair?
-4.
That's
Wait,
x.
-6.
-6. So -2 minus -6. Okay, and then I just do the same thing with x. What's the x value from the second ordered pair? 4. And I subtract what from that? -4, the first x value. Okay? All right, Kaylin, on both of those, what do I do with those double negatives in between the two numbers? Change them to addition. Okay? So, Kaylin, what's -2 plus 6?
Would be 4.
+4. What about 4 plus 4? 8. Now, the majority of the time, you guys, they're going to ask you to just write your fraction in simplest form. So what would this fraction be in simplest form? 1/2. Now, every once in a while, they might ask you to write it as a decimal. What would this be as a decimal? 0.5. Okay? So today, everything we're doing today on your assignment is going to be fraction in simplest form. All right? Okay? Chisholm, you want to try the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, take it down first.
That's fine. Our ordered pair is 8, -2. Our second ordered pair is 1, 1. Now, the other thing I didn't tell you guys before, if you want to label these like x1, y1, and then x2, y2, if that kind of helps you know where to plug those in, you can. You don't have to do that every time, but sometimes that helps people to kind of see that. Okay? All right, Chisholm, I'm doing y2 minus y1.
What?
I'm going to do y2 minus y1.
What are you talking about?
I'm ready to go. You said you're going to do it.
Yeah, like.
Okay, what's my y2?
Y2 is 1.
1 minus y1. What's the y1?
-2.
-2.
Wait, is it fine if it's -2 subtract 1? Or no?
Like, are you saying could you go this direction?
Yeah.
Technically, you can. I always start with the second one because I think it saves you from making mistakes. Here's what I'll tell you, Chisholm. If you choose to do -2 minus 1, then on the bottom, you would have to start with 8 and then subtract the other one.
I was gonna do it.
Okay? But I always start with the second one and then go to the first because it just saves from mistakes. Okay? So we did 1 minus -2. Okay? What's the second x value, Chisholm?
1.
1 subtracts the first one. 8. Okay? So on top, what do I do with these double negatives? change to positive. What's 1 plus 2?
3.
And then on the bottom, 1 minus 8.
7.
1 minus 8. I can't start with 1, take away 8, and then end up with 7. Doesn't make sense.
Negative 7.
-7.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's nice.
Chisholm, can you simplify 3 over -7? No. So my final answer is just -3/7. Good. Okay. Lathe, what about the next one? So we're doing -3, 2 is our first order pair, our x1, y1. Our x2, y2 second order pair is going to be 7, 2. So we start with y2. Second y value is what number?
2.
2. Subtract the first y value.
So 2 minus 2.
Okay, 2 minus 2. And on the bottom, x2 minus x1.
So 7 minus -3.
Good. 7 minus -3. So on the top lathe, what's 2 minus 2?
0.
0. On the bottom, we change to 7 plus 3 to get
10.
10. Lathe, what's 0 divided by 10?
0.
0. Okay. Anybody want to volunteer for the last one? Before I call on somebody? Are you volunteering? All right, go for it, James.
-6.
Y2 is -6 minus
And then the minus 2.
minus 2 is y1.
And then we're going to do 5 minus
Good. Okay, on the top, -6 minus 2, -8. On the bottom, 5 minus 5
Yeah, over 0.
over 0. What answer would that give me?
What's it called? Is it all? Not all the what is it?
Anyone remember from yesterday? Remember when I gave you those 4 graphs?
Wait,
There
hang
was-
on.
Say it again, Kylie.
Undefined.
Beautiful. Right? 0 on the top is just going to be 0. 0 on the bottom is undefined. Because, can I take 8 things and divide them into 0 groups?
No.
Not possible, right? You cannot divide by 0, so it's always going to be undefined if you get 0 on the bottom. All right? How do we feel about this part? Really not too bad. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
last part you're definitely going to want to write down at least one of these examples. I would write them both down just because it's good to have both. Now, on this, it gives you r -5 as your first order pair and 3, 13 as your second. And then it tells us m is equal to 8. What did we say m represents?
So,
Slope. So we already know the slope. So what are they asking us to solve for here?
The R.
R. They want us to find out what is the value for r. Does anyone have a thought on how we could do this?
Maybe do it just like we've been doing it, and then in the end, plug in.
Okay. I like where you're starting. You said do it how we've been doing it. So tell me what you would do if we've doing it how we've been doing it.
Do 13 minus -5
So y2 minus y1, I like that, over what?
over 3 minus R.
Now, here's a question I'm going to ask. Usually, we solve this to get slope. Well, we already have the slope, so how could I use this 8? Equal to 8, good. Now, truthfully, I want to put it equal to 8 over 1. I want a fraction, and we're going to see why in just a second, okay? So if it doesn't give you a fraction, make it a fraction by putting it over 1. Now, is there anything we can simplify first before we get started?
That's 13
Yeah, what's 13 plus 5?
18.
So we get 18 over 3 minus r equals 8 over 1. Now, we spent a whole section talking about how to solve 2 fractions that are equal. What did we do?
You multiply by the reciprocal.
Say it again, Aiden.
cross multiply.
Cross multiply.
Just kidding.
Good.
It's a multiply by the reciprocal.
Right? Some people call it the butterfly. So, what's 18 times 1? 18. Now, when I do 8 times 3 minus r, how do I write that out?
8 parentheses 3 minus r.
Very good. Come on, we learned something last chapter. Let's go. Okay? Now, Harper, what's my next step to solve?
Would you do 8 times 3 and 8 times r?
Good. So I get 18 is equal to 24 minus 8r. Okay. Gabe, do you know my next step?
Subtract 24 to 18.
Good. Subtract 24 from both sides. So we get negative 6 is equal to negative 8r. Don't forget to bring that negative down with it. All right. And what's my last step, you guys? Divide by negative 8. Now, I want you to give me this answer as a fraction in simplest form. So right now, I have negative 6 over negative 8. What do two negatives give me? Positive. What does 6 over 8 simplify to? What are both numbers divisible by? 2. So I get 3/4. Okay? So really, it's just kind of taking what we talked about today with finding slope of ordered pairs and combining that with solving proportions. All right? So let's do one more together, and then I'll be done today. We're on pretty good time, really. So, same idea. My y2 is 4, minus y1 is 8. What do I put that over?
Over r minus negative 2.
R minus negative 2. And then I set that equal to the slope. What slope do they give me? Close. Negative 1/2. Don't forget that negative, okay? All right. Now, before I cross multiply, I'm just going to simplify. So what's 4 minus 8? Negative 4. Be careful about our signs. And then change that to addition, r plus 2. Now, anytime our slope is negative, does that negative sign go with both numbers or just one of them? This negative sign that's with our slope, does it go with the 1 and the 2, or does it just go with one or the other? Just goes with one, because if it goes with both, what would negative 1 divided by negative 2 give you? Positive 1/2, right? So anytime we have a negative, we choose, it doesn't matter which one you choose. So do you all want to put it with the 1 or with the 2? 1. So I'm going to write negative 1 on top, 2 on the bottom. Okay? Anybody want to take it from here? Okay. What do you get when you cross multiply, James? What do I write before my parentheses? What number? Negative 1. Good. Okay. All right. Good. What do I get when I distribute that? Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, I think you guys are doing well on this. We're gonna start our worksheet today.